Shalom. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to continue in Matthew chapter 15, still reading in the New International Version. And I'm going to pick up at verse 10, because this is the next section about breaking boundaries. And this has to do with food, and that's an important aspect also of the Jewish life of Jesus' day as well as today. Many of us here today have heard of what is called a kosher diet, and Jews tend to eat, observant Jews will eat a kosher diet. Kosher means it's a diet that is in conformity with the laws of God. In the Torah, that is in the Jewish law, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, there is a section that talks about foods that are clean and foods that are unclean. And if you're going to be an observant Jew and you're following in belief and you're going to follow the Torah, you should eat only the clean foods. And so there came this tradition that got added to that began to interpret that if you're eating things that are unclean, then that is defiling you, that is making you unclean. And Jesus is going to challenge that. You ready? Take a look, beginning in verse 10. Jesus called the crowd to him and said, "Listen and understand. What goes into someone's mouth does not defile them, but what comes out of their mouth, that is what defiles them." Then the disciples came to him and asked, "Do you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this?" And he replied, "Every plant that my heavenly Father has not planted will be pulled up by the roots. Leave them. They are blind guides. If the blind lead the blind, both will fall into a pit." And Peter said, "Well, explain the parable to us." "Are you still so dull?" Jesus asked them. "Don't you see that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then out of the body? But the things that come out of a person's mouth, they come from the heart, and these defile them. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander. These are what defile a person. But eating with unwashed hands does not defile a person." So here's the interesting thing that Jesus is saying. What's in your heart will come out of your mouth. It's in your heart. That's what defiles you. The condition of your heart is where you are unclean. It is not the food that you eat. Now that's an interesting thing, because in the Jewish law, it is described clean and unclean foods, but to add to that, the Jewish tradition was built up that if you eat something that is unclean, then you are unclean. And what Jesus is saying is what you eat doesn't really matter. Now that's a big boundary to break. In the Gospels, Jesus keeps challenging these boundaries. Later in the book of Acts, in particular Acts chapter 10, when the Apostle Peter has a vision. He's up on a rooftop and he's hungry. It's getting close to lunchtime. But before he eats, he gets into kind of a prayerful trance. And God brings what appears to be a sheet down in front of him. And on this sheet are all these animals that fit the category of unclean in the book of the Torah. And God says in the vision, "Rise, kill, and eat." And Peter says, "No, no, 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 no. I have never eaten anything like that before. Not me. I don't eat things that are unclean." And 3 times, God gives him this vision and takes the sheet away. And Peter is left wondering, what was this vision all about? Very confusing. About that time, downstairs is a knock at the door, knock, 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 and there are these 3 Gentiles at the door, and Peter sees these 3 Gentiles, and they have this message to the host. Peter is staying with a guy also named Peter, by the way, Simon. Peter's Jewish name is Simon. He's staying with a guy named Simon. Simon is a tanner. That is, he works with leather. And, and here is Peter staying with them temporarily in the town of Joppa, Joppa, which, by the way, is the modern town of Jaffa. And it is a southern suburb of Tel Aviv, big giant city on the coast of Israel. So here is Peter. And he gets this vision, and he's very confused. What does this vision mean? And then these 3 Gentiles show up. Remember, the sheet came down 3 times, by the way. And Peter sees these three Gentiles, and they say, up north in the town of Caesarea, there is a Roman centurion named Cornelius. And yesterday, and the other day, he was praying, and he got a vision from an angel that said, "Send for Simon, and have him come and tell you the gospel of Jesus." Now, for a Jew to walk into a Gentile's house, for a Jew to eat with a Gentile was forbidden. That was a Jewish tradition, not a law, but a Jewish tradition. He said, "Man, you don't do that." So here are these three Gentiles who say to Peter, "Follow us up to our master's home, Cornelius, and tell him the gospel." And you know what Peter's conclusion was? The vision that he saw: rise and kill Peter, rise and kill all these animals, these unclean animals, and eat them. Peter concluded, God has shown me that whatsoever he has called clean, I shall not call unclean. And so he invited these Gentiles into Simon's house. They spent the night. They ate meals together. The next morning, Peter left with these Gentiles, went up north to Caesarea Maritima, where Cornelius' house was. And as he walked into Cornelius' house, entering the house, he says, "You know, us Jews, we're not supposed to go into a Gentile's house, nor are we to eat with them, but God has shown me that whatsoever he has made clean, I cannot call unclean." There's a huge boundary being broken here about food. Food is no longer something that's off limits, clean, unclean. We followers of Jesus, we don't have that rule anymore. Which is why, by the way, I enjoy some really good bacon and some pork chops, and I had me some pulled pork, and I had me a little pork loin in a crock pot the other day. Yeah, I like that stuff. Yeah, I know I'm wearing one of these. But what God has made clean, you don't make unclean. And what Jesus makes clear in this teaching, it is what's in your heart. Your heart is where clean and unclean resides. And it's in your heart where the evil things come out of your mouth. If your heart is cleaned, then you are clean. And it is only Jesus that cleanses the heart. So, that's the source, not the food you eat. In Jesus, we are clean. Thanks for joining me.